let's talk football. 5-10 years ago, if I'd said to you, Andrew, what's going to happen first? Bobby Petrino comes back to Fayetteville, or we get the apocalypse? Which side would you have taken?
Probably the apocalypse.
I think I might have too.
But lo and behold, he has returned.
Could be a sign of the apocalypse. I don't know.
Yeah, I could not believe that happened. I remember when all that stuff started coming out that he was being looked at as like an offensive coordinator candidate. And I was like, there's no way. There's no way. And then sure enough, there it is. It's happened. Like, holy cow. And it's just truly remarkable. I mean, I guess Petrino has paid his dues. I mean, he spent like 3 or 4 years at Missouri State, FCS level. Did a year coaching the offense coordinator there at A&M. And here he is. I mean, honestly, Arkansas fans are super excited about it, but I also think that you've got to look at this honestly and be like, this is desperate times call for desperate measures. Sam Pittman knows that his job is on the line, and they went 4-8 last year. That can't happen again and him keep his job. And he thinks Bobby Petrino, the man, can coach offense. And so he's going to bring him in and let him do his thing.
Hey, look, barring somebody having footage of you, murdering someone in public, a lot of sins can be forgiven if you win. And he's still probably, a top 5 offensive mind in college football or in that range. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. How much does what they are going to do next year change based on his addition?
Well, I mean, compared to what they were going to be with Dan Enos, who didn't even make it through a full season, it's going to be vastly different, I would imagine. I think the thing with Petrino is I feel like he's going to know how to use the weapons he has. I feel like that was a big issue with Dan Enos is Dan Enos had a system, and he was going to run his system whether or not the pieces fit the system or not. And I think Bobby Petrino is going to be like, hey, I've got this playmaker over here that's super duper fast. Well, I'm going to find a way to get him the ball and get in the end zone. Or hey, my offensive line is struggling. I'm going to find ways to scheme up to kind of cover up the offensive line struggles. So I think that's going to be, it's going to be vast. It's going to look much different than what it did last year. It should be more exciting offense. I think Arkansas fans remember what 2010 and 2011 were like. Don't know if it's going to be quite to that level because you don't have Ryan Mallett or Tyler Wilson at quarterback and Jarius Wright and Joe Adams and those guys at wide receiver. But you still have some good pieces that I think he's going to try to find ways to exploit the defense.
Well, they also don't have KJ Jefferson, and that one surprised me. I think he's at UCF?
Yeah,
I didn't really understand that one. Yeah. Oh, well, okay. Yeah, that makes a little more sense.
It's a perfect fit for him, to be quite honest. And honestly, I think he needed to move on. I talked about how Devo Davis, his memories are going to be kind of clouded in how his career ended. Same thing with KJ Jefferson, unfortunately. Did not go that great this past year, yet he's one of the best quarterbacks in school history, if you look at it statistically speaking. His 2-year span from, I guess it would have been 2021 and 2022, his numbers are very, very comparable to the 2 years Ryan Mallett was at Arkansas. I mean, if you put them side by side, pretty crazy. So I hope people remember him fondly, but yeah, he's gone. And now they brought in Taylon Green, transfer from Boise State, who was a freshman All-American a couple of years ago, didn't have the best 2023. He was a guy who had an offensive coordinator change as well. They, for some reason, created some sort of quarterback controversy at Boise State where the backup was getting to play a little bit, 2 quarterback systems. Unless it's Tim Tebow and Chris Leak, it rarely works.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there was a lot of things that went into that. I think there's a lot of potential there. He's 6'6", can run, apparently has a cannon. Seems like a guy that would fit a Bobby Petrino offense. But we'll see. We'll see if he can make the adjustment from the Mountain West to the SEC.
Is that a thing where it's just presumed he's the starter, or just Jacoby Criswell give that a run? Because Criswell's been on that campus for a few years now, it seems like.
Well, he was actually only here this past season. He transferred in from
Okay.
North Carolina, but he is an
Yeah,
Arkansas.
they seem to get all their quarterbacks from their backups from North Carolina for whatever
Yeah,
reason.
yeah,
Yeah.
they did. He is from Arkansas though, and he was recruited by Arkansas. You know, it was the whenever Sam Pittman took over, he decided to. It was too late in the process at that point. He was like, I'm going to North Carolina, but I think that relationship helped them get him last year. I think there's going to be a real quarterback battle between Jacoby Criswell and Taylor Green. Now, my expectation is that Taylor Green will win the battle just because he was Bobby Petrino's handpicked guy. But there is not a presumed starter like there has been, KJ Jefferson the last several years. Felipe Franks before that was a presumed starter. So we actually get a quarterback battle for the first time in the Sam Pittman era. Going to be very fascinating to see how that plays out this spring.
I'm looking at a depth chart. Are Limmer and Latham both back, or is that outdated?
They are both gone. That is
Oh, they're
outdated.
both gone. Okay, that is
Yep.
out. I mean, that offense to me is just going to be it's like that scene in Major League where they're looking at the roster and who are these guys? Is it going to be that kind of situation, or is there a little bit more of a brighter picture than that?
Well, I would say at wide receiver and tight ends, they know like they've got guys coming back. The guys you want back, it's pretty much everybody. Running back, Rocket Sanders is another guy that transferred out that may have surprised people. He's at South
Yeah.
Carolina now, but he's gone. AJ Green is gone, but they do bring back the guys that were very promising last year. Rashad Dubinion has been here a couple of years already. He'll be a junior. He's had some flashes, maybe not as consistent as you want to be. Isaiah Augustave did not play pretty much all year. He was a true freshman this past year, but with injuries and stuff, he got to play the last couple of games and had almost 200 rushing yards over the last 2 weeks of the season. So really encouraging stuff from him. He's a 4-star recruit. But then they've completely, I've talked about Taylor Green coming in. They've completely, I wouldn't say overhauled the offensive line because they do have a lot of guys coming back. But they did bring in, I believe they've got 3 or 4 offensive line transfer portal additions. I think Keyshawn Blackstock from Michigan State, Carmona from San Jose State. That's a guy that's going to compete for your left tackle position. Same with Blackstock. You brought in Addison Nichols from Tennessee. That's a guy that's going to compete for a job in the interior, likely at center. Played a little bit at Tennessee. These are all guys either played a lot like Carmona at San Jose State that are going to be making a jump up, or they're guys that were really heralded recruits, 4-star coming out of high school or JUCO and didn't play much at their Power 5 school. And so we'll see kind of how it all meshes with the guys. They've got some young talent, some guys that maybe were forced into action too early. Like Andrew Chambly was the left tackle for most of the year last year and really struggled, but he was a redshirt freshman, probably wasn't ready to play. Does that experience help him or does it hinder him? I think that the offensive line, to me, I know everyone's going to be focused on the quarterback battle. That's understandable. But to me, the most fascinating thing to watch in spring ball is going to be how that offensive line shakes out with the new pieces, the young guys, all that. Who ends up where?
Yeah, I'm with you because it seemed like a lot of you could name that line almost tackle to tackle. They were putting out, and especially at centers and guards, were really putting out some dudes and putting them in the league, and that's kind of been a staple of what they are for a while. I think where it fell off last year seemed to be there just weren't enough guys around Sanders. Sanders couldn't stay healthy. They couldn't protect Jefferson, and it just kind of all fell apart from there. I think we talked. They didn't seem to get a lot of separation downfield, and you looked at where the guys came from. You're like, well, maybe that was predictable, but it just what a weird year because I think we did a preseason video on that team, and I think one of us had Sanders going to being on stage in New York for the Heisman finalists, and one of us said that about Jefferson, and then you look up and they can't do anything. It was the weirdest year a year ago.
It really was. And you look at the early stretch of losses, they were all by one possession. They were within a possession of Alabama, within a possession of LSU. These are all games. Maybe if they find a way to win them, things stay together and the wheels don't fall off. But at the end of the year, it was just a disaster. They got demolished by Auburn, demolished by Missouri. didn't look particularly inspiring against a really bad FIU team.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just bad, and it was very weird. The offense, clearly the Dan Enos hire did not work. Credit to Sam Pittman for letting him go mid-season because it had to happen, especially whenever they lost to Mississippi State 7-3. So it was a very weird year. Going to be very interesting to see kind of how it plays out with Bobby Petrino running the show on offense.
Defensively, what's it look like?
Well, they bring back the entire coaching staff. I think that's critical. Travis Williams at defensive coordinator seemed to really help, at least until there at the very end when they gave up a gazillion points to Auburn and Missouri. But they completely redo their linebacker core. That's probably the most interesting position to watch during the spring because Poop Hall transferred out. Jordan Crook transferred out. Jaheim Thomas, leading tackler, transferred out. I mean, pretty much their entire – I looked it up, and there was one other guy that was out of eligibility. It was like 92% of their linebacker snaps are gone. So you've got – and only really one guy with any type of legitimate experience is back. They brought in 3 really good freshman linebackers, highly touted guys recruited by a lot of schools. Then they did add Xavier Sori, former 5-star recruit, as a transfer from Georgia. Didn't play a whole lot at Georgia, but I think they're hoping that Drew Sanders didn't play a whole lot at Alabama, and he was an All-American at Arkansas. They're probably trying to replicate that. Can it happen again? I don't know. We'll see. But to me, that's the most intriguing position to watch, just because we don't really know what the depth chart's going to look like at that spot. Quite frankly, anywhere, just because of so many guys they lost.